parents held a funeral for me while I was still breathing. Not figuratively, not as some dramatic metaphor for being disowned. They literally stood in St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Greenwich, Connecticut, and told 200 guests that their youngest daughter had died in a car accident on a rainy highway in Oregon. They chose a closed casket because, they explained through tasteful tears, the damage had been too severe for viewing. My mother wore black Chanel for 6 weeks. My father gave a eulogy about losing their brightest star. They accepted sympathy cards, flower arrangements, and donations to a scholarship fund established in my name. They played the grieving parents so convincingly that no one thought to question whether the body in that mahogany box was real. I found out about my own death 3 years after it happened. I was 22 years old, sitting in a studio apartment in Seattle that smelled like mildew and instant noodles, teaching myself to code on a second-hand laptop held together with tape and stubborn hope. A college acquaintance I had not spoken to in years forwarded me a link with a single question mark. The link led to an obituary. My obituary. Complete with my senior year photo and a paragraph about a promising young life cut tragically short. I remember the cold that spread through my chest as I read those words. It started somewhere behind my sternum and radiated outward until my fingertips went numb. That cold never fully thawed. It just settled into my bones and became part of who I was. That was the night I stopped being their daughter. That was the night I became something else entirely. 11 years have passed since that discovery. Today I stood at the window of my corner office on the 38th floor of Harbor Tower in downtown Seattle, watching ferries cut white lines across Elliott Bay. The view usually calms me. The gray water, the distant mountains, the steady rhythm of a city that never knew I was supposed to be dead. But today, the view did nothing. My phone sat on my desk. It had buzzed once, just once. But that single vibration felt like a crack in the foundation of everything I had built to protect myself. The number was saved in my contacts under a single word: Greenwich. I had unblocked it 48 hours ago, sensing that this moment was coming. The vultures always circle when they smell money, and last week my name had appeared in a business publication alongside a valuation that made my parents' entire estate look like pocket change. I picked up the phone and read the message again. 6 words. No greeting. No acknowledgement of 11 years of silence. No apology for burying their living daughter. Emergency dinner, tomorrow. 7 p.m. Do not be late. It was signed simply, Mother. The audacity of it, the sheer, breathtaking entitlement. As if I were still that 19-year-old girl shivering on the front porch of the Whitmore estate, waiting for permission to exist. As if a decade of silence could be erased with a command phrased like a summons. I turned from the window and caught my reflection in the glass. The woman staring back bore little resemblance to the girl they had thrown away. I was 30 years old now. I was the founder and chief executive officer of Meridian Logistics, an artificial intelligence company that optimized global shipping routes. Last quarter, we were valued at $80 million. The tech press called me the quiet billionaire, though that was an exaggeration. I was not quite there yet, but I was close enough that my parents had finally noticed I was still breathing. The reflection showed sharp cheekbones, a black blazer cut like armor, hair pulled back in a way that meant business. The only soft thing about me was the small silver ring on my right hand. Grandma Ruth's ring. The only thing I had taken when I left. I built this from nothing. From a shelter bed in my first month in Seattle. From 3 part-time jobs that barely covered rent. From nights spent learning to code while my stomach growled because I could not afford both food and internet. My parents wanted me dead? Fine, I became someone they could not ignore. And now, apparently, someone they needed. The office door opened with a soft click. Diana Chen walked in carrying a leather portfolio that probably contained more firepower than most armies. Diana was 41, precise, sharp-eyed, and the closest thing I had to a true confidant. She had been my lawyer for 5 years, my strategist for 3, my friend for longer than I cared to admit. She saw the phone in my hand and nodded once. "You got the text." 6 words, I said. No punctuation, very on brand for Vivian. "Did you respond?" "Not yet." I set the phone down. "Tell me what you found." Diana settled into the chair across from my desk and opened the portfolio. "Whitmore Textiles is hemorrhaging money, down 40% in 18 months. Your father refused to modernize, kept borrowing against assets to maintain appearances. Classic Harold." I waited. There was more. There was always more. Diana continued. "They are 3 months from defaulting on a $6 million loan from First Greenwich Bank. If they default, they lose the company, the estate, everything. Harold has been quietly reaching out to investors for the past 2 months. Everyone said no." She looked up at me. "You are their last option. The daughter they killed is the only one who can save them." A cold smile crossed my face. Not joy. Something darker. More satisfying. "How long have we been preparing for this?" 26 months, Diana said. She placed the portfolio on my desk and opened it to reveal a stack of documents that represented 2 years of patient, methodical planning. Everything is ready. The debt acquisitions, the shell companies, the leverage. The only question is whether you want to do this in person. I thought about that. Mailing legal notices would be cleaner, safer. I would never have to see their faces or hear their excuses. The sheriff could serve them foreclosure papers the day after Thanksgiving, and I could watch the empire crumble from 3,000 miles away. But that was not why I had spent 2 years building this trap. I picked up Grandma Ruth's ring, turned it on my finger. Ruth had died 2 years ago, and I had not learned about it until months after the funeral. Because officially, I was already dead. You cannot notify a corpse. "No," I said finally. "Mailing papers is business. This is not business." Diana raised an eyebrow. "Then what is it?" "A resurrection." I met her eyes. "They need to see a ghost." I picked up my phone and typed 2 words. "Hit send. I am coming." Diana nodded slowly. "There is something else. Something about your Uncle Marcus. I found a financial trail I cannot explain yet." Marcus. The name landed strangely. I had not thought about my father's younger brother in years. He had vanished from family gatherings when I was a teenager. No one talked about why. "What kind of trail?" Diana shook her head. "I need another day to verify. But if I am right, you might have had an ally all along. Someone who never forgot about you." I did not know what to make of that. I had spent 11 years believing I was completely alone. The idea that someone might have been watching, helping, felt like a crack in the armor I had built around my heart. I filed it away for later. First, there was packing to do. I did not pack a suitcase for a family visit. I packed a tactical kit, a black designer dress that cost $4,000 and fit like armor. Diamond earrings I had bought myself after my first million. Proof that I had survived without them. And in a hidden pocket, Grandma Ruth's last letter, still unopened. I was saving it for when this was over. The leather portfolio went into my carry-on. Every document needed to destroy my parents' world, organized alphabetically and color-coded for maximum devastation. Diana met me at the elevator. "The jet is ready. We land in Hartford at 9 tomorrow morning. That gives us time before dinner." "Time for what?" "To meet your Uncle Marcus." She pressed the down button. "He reached out through my office yesterday. He says he has something you need to see." I thought about the girl who had left Greenwich 11 years ago. Broken, erased, alone. That girl was gone. In her place stood someone my parents never imagined. The elevator arrived. I stepped inside. Diana hesitated at the threshold. "Are you sure you want to do this? Once you walk into that house, there is no going back." I looked at my reflection in the polished elevator doors. The woman staring back had eyes like steel. "They declared me dead, Diana." I picked up the portfolio that held their destruction. "Tomorrow I am going to return the favor." The doors closed. The ghost was going home. The Gulf Stream cut through clouds, somewhere over Nevada. and I could not stop thinking about the last time I had made this journey. 11 years ago, it had been a Greyhound bus. 47 hours from Connecticut to Seattle with nothing but a thin jacket, $200 in crumpled bills, and a suitcase that held everything I still owned. I had sat next to a woman named Marie who shared her turkey sandwich without asking questions. She had told me about her granddaughter in Portland, about her late husband, about the way life sometimes breaks you just so it can put you back together differently. I never saw her again, but that stranger showed me more kindness in 47 hours than my own mother had shown me in 19 years. Now I sat in cream leather, surrounded by polished walnut and soft lighting. The irony was not lost on me, but the comfort felt hollow. My mind kept pulling backward, dragging me toward memories I had spent a decade trying to bury. I closed my eyes, and suddenly I was 19 again, standing in my father's study, holding a folder I was never meant to see. It had been a Thursday evening in November. I remember because the house smelled like the pine garlands Vivian always insisted on hanging before Thanksgiving. My parents were at a charity gala. Charlotte was out with friends. I had the house to myself, and I had decided to leave a note on my father's desk rather than face him directly. The note explained that I had been accepted to a technology accelerator program in Seattle, that I wanted to defer Harvard Business School, that I needed to try something of my own before spending my life managing a company I had never chosen. I knew it would not go well. But I thought a letter might soften the blow. Give him time to process before we spoke. The study door was unlocked. I walked in, placed the envelope on his desk, and accidentally knocked over a stack of folders with my elbow. Papers scattered across the Persian rug like fallen leaves. I knelt to gather them. That was when I saw something that did not make sense. Financial documents, transfer records, a company name I did not recognize, something with the word Cayman in it. Numbers that seemed wrong. Large sums moving from Whitmore Textiles accounts to somewhere else entirely. And at the bottom of one page, a handwritten note in my father's precise script: "Destroy after transfer complete." My stomach tightened. I did not understand what I was looking at. Not fully. But something felt deeply, fundamentally wrong. Like finding a crack in the foundation of a house you thought was solid. Footsteps in the hallway. Panic shot through me. I shoved the papers back into their folder, stacked everything as close to the original arrangement as I could manage, and fled to my room with my heart pounding against my ribs. I told myself it was nothing. Probably legal, probably normal business that I simply did not understand. I was 19. What did I know about corporate finance? But the wrongness of it lodged in my chest like a splinter I could not remove. 2 days later, my father called a family dinner. Charlotte sat across from me, picking at her salad. Vivian perched at the end of the table, her posture perfect, her smile fixed. Harold occupied the head of the table like a king surveying his domain. "I have heard," he said, swirling his scotch with practiced ease, "that you are considering rejecting Harvard Business School." His voice was calm. That was the dangerous part. Harold Whitmore never shouted. Shouting implied loss of control, and my father never lost control. I tried to explain. I told him about the accelerator program, about technology, about wanting to build something of my own instead of inheriting something built by others. I spoke about opportunity and innovation and the future of logistics. He listened without expression. When I finished, he set down his glass. "Whitmore children do not chase fantasies," he said. "They uphold the family legacy. What if I want to create my own legacy?" His eyes went cold. "You are not entitled to your own anything. Everything you have, your education, your clothes, this roof over your head, came from this family. You owe us obedience." Vivian chimed in without looking up from her plate. "You are embarrassing us, Serena. What will people say?" The Whitmore girl, running off to chase some startup nonsense. I looked at Charlotte, desperate for support. My sister stared at her salad and said nothing. She would not meet my eyes. Something cracked inside me, frustration, desperation. And then I made the mistake that would cost me everything. I saw the papers in your study, Dad, the transfers. I do not know what they mean, but... The room went silent. The clink of silverware stopped. Even the grandfather clock seemed to hold its breath. Something shifted in my father's face. Fear. It was there for just a moment, quickly masked by fury, but I saw it. I had never seen Harold Whitmore afraid of anything. "Everyone out," he said quietly. "Charlotte. Vivian. Now." They left without argument. When the door closed, my father stood slowly, walked around the table, and stopped 3 feet from my chair. His shadow fell across me like a verdict. "What exactly do you think you saw?" I stammered something about transfers and shell companies. I said I did not understand. I said I was probably wrong. But the damage was done. He gave me 1 hour to pack a bag. I descended the stairs at 11:47 p.m. with a single suitcase. Rain hammered against the windows. Harold stood at the front door, arms crossed, face carved from stone. Vivian had retreated to her room with a convenient headache. Charlotte stood on the staircase landing, tears streaming down her face. But she did not move, did not speak, did not try to stop what was happening. My father delivered his sentence with the calm precision of a judge reading a verdict. "You are no longer a Whitmore. You are no longer my daughter. If you contact anyone in this family, I will make sure you regret it. If you speak to anyone about what you think you saw, I will destroy you completely. As far as this family is concerned, Serena Whitmore died tonight." I wanted to scream, to fight, to beg Charlotte to help me. But something in his eyes told me he meant every word. This was not anger. This was calculation. I was a threat now, and Harold Whitmore eliminated threats. I walked out into the rain with $200 in my pocket and nowhere to go. The door slammed behind me. I heard the deadbolt lock. I looked back once. Charlotte's face appeared in the upstairs window. She pressed her palm against the glass. A silent goodbye. Or an apology, or both. Then Vivian appeared and pulled the curtain closed. 3 years later, I discovered they had not stopped at disowning me. A Facebook message from a high school acquaintance, a link to an obituary, my senior photo next to words that made no sense. "In loving memory of Serena Grace Whitmore, tragically lost while pursuing her dreams out west." They had dated my death to match the night I left. They told people I died in a car accident on a rainy Oregon highway. Closed casket, private burial. They collected donations to a scholarship fund in my name while I ate ramen and slept in shelters. I sat in my tiny Seattle apartment for hours staring at that screen. I did not cry. I had run out of tears by then. Something inside me simply calcified, hardened into diamond. That was the night I stopped grieving for the family I had lost. That was the night I started planning. I opened my eyes. The jet had begun its descent toward Hartford. Diana sat across from me, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in low, urgent tones. When she hung up, her expression was strange, unsettled. "I have been tracing financial records," she said, "looking for anything we might have missed. There is an account in Seattle, a small trust. Someone has been depositing $500 a month into it for the past 10 years. My blood went cold. That money. I had thought it was an anonymous scholarship from the community center. Some months it had been the only reason I ate. It was not a scholarship, Diana said. The deposits trace back to a shell company, and that shell company traces back to one person. She paused. Your Uncle Marcus. He has been supporting you in secret since the year you left. Marcus, the uncle who vanished from family gatherings when I was 14. The one no one talked about. The one my father said was unstable, unreliable, dangerous. He reached out through my office yesterday, Diana continued. He says he needs to see you before you go to the estate. He says he has documents Harold thought he destroyed. The same words echoed in my memory. Destroy after transfer complete. Below us, the Connecticut coastline emerged from the clouds, gray, cold, waiting. I stared at the approaching land. I spent 11 years thinking I was completely alone. Diana watched me carefully. Your uncle has been sending money to an account in Seattle for 10 years. Did you know? No, I said quietly. But I am starting to think there is a lot I did not know. The wheels touched down at Hartford Brainerd Airport just after 9 in the morning, and Connecticut welcomed me back with gray skies and a bitter wind that cut through my coat the moment I stepped onto the tarmac. I had not set foot in this state in 11 years. The air smelled different here. Colder, older, full of memories I had spent a decade trying to outrun. A black Escalade waited near the private terminal, arranged by Diana with her usual efficiency. The driver loaded our bags without conversation. I appreciated that. I was not in the mood for small talk. As we pulled away from the airport, I stared out the window at the bare trees and brown fields rolling past. November in New England had always felt like the world holding its breath before winter. Everything waiting, everything still. My phone felt heavy in my hand. I kept thinking about what Diana had told me on the plane. Uncle Marcus. $500 a month. 10 years. All those times I thought some anonymous benefactor had seen potential in a struggling girl at the community center. All those months when that money meant the difference between eating and starving. It had been Marcus all along. I needed to hear his voice. I needed to understand why a man I barely remembered had spent a decade keeping me alive when my own parents had declared me dead. Diana glanced at me from the driver's seat. She had insisted on driving herself, said she did not trust anyone else with what we were carrying. "The number I gave you," she said. "Are you going to call?" I looked at the phone. Then I dialed. 3 rings. Then a voice I had not heard in 15 years. Older now, rougher, but unmistakable. "Serena. I wondered when you would finally call." For a moment I could not speak. He sounded like my father, but warmer, tired in a way that suggested years of carrying something heavy. "You have been sending me money for 10 years, I finally said. "Why?" "Because Harold tried to erase you." His voice was steady, and I know what it feels like to be erased by him. I thought I was alone. I thought no one— "You were never alone, sweetheart." He cut me off gently. I just could not let Harold know I was watching. He would have found a way to stop me. My throat tightened. I had spent 11 years building walls, convincing myself I did not need anyone. That isolation was strength. This unexpected kindness from a forgotten uncle threatened to crack something I had worked very hard to keep intact. I forced myself to focus. Walls stay up. Mission stays clear. "Diana said you have documents, something Harold tried to destroy." "I do," Marcus said, "but this is not a conversation for the phone. We need to meet in person." His voice dropped lower. "There is a reason Harold wanted you gone, Serena. It was not about business school. It was never about business school." The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading outward. I waited for him to continue. 15 years ago, Marcus said, I was the chief financial officer of Whitmore Textiles. Your grandfather built that company from nothing, and I spent 20 years helping it grow. I thought I was doing good work. I thought I was protecting the family legacy." He paused. I could hear him breathing on the other end, gathering himself. Then I discovered irregularities in the books, money being siphoned into accounts I did not recognize, transfers to offshore entities that had no business purpose I could identify. When I confronted Harold, he denied everything, called me paranoid, unstable. What happened? Within a month he had turned the board against me, called an emergency vote. I was removed from the company. My shares were bought out at a fraction of their value. He spread rumors that I had a gambling problem, a drinking problem, mental health issues. He paused again. None of it was true. But by the time I could fight back, my reputation was destroyed. The parallels hit me like a punch to the chest. Harold had done to Marcus exactly what he had done to me. Erased him. Rewritten the narrative. Made everyone believe the lie was truth. I should have fought harder, Marcus continued. I should have gone public. But Harold had leverage on me. Things from my past he threatened to expose. So I walked away. I disappeared. I let him win. His voice cracked slightly. When I heard what he did to you, staging a funeral, erasing you completely, I knew I could not let you disappear the way I did. The money was all I could do without Harold finding out. I had to use shell companies, fake names. It was not much, but it was enough, I said quietly. Some months, it was the only reason I ate. Silence stretched between us, the weight of 10 years of secret kindness hanging in the air. What exactly did you find back then? I asked. What was Harold hiding? Marcus hesitated. A long pause. Embezzlement, he finally said. Harold was stealing from his own company, moving money into offshore accounts, falsifying records to cover his tracks. How much? Over the years? Millions. At least 2 million that I could trace before he pushed me out. Probably more. My mind raced. The folder I had seen in Harold's study 11 years ago, the transfers, the handwritten note, destroy after transfer complete. It had been real. I had stumbled onto evidence of my father's crimes, and I had not even understood what I was looking at. I saw something, I said. The night before he threw me out. Financial documents in his study, transfer records. Marcus's voice sharpened. You saw them? Does Harold know you saw them? I mentioned it. Once. That is when everything changed. That is when he told me I was dead to him. Marcus exhaled heavily. That is why. That is why he went nuclear. You were a liability, Serena. You knew too much, even if you did not understand what you knew. He did not throw me out because I rejected Harvard, I said slowly. The truth settling into place like puzzle pieces finally connecting. He threw you out because you were the only witness to his crime, Marcus confirmed. Business school was just the excuse. The real reason was those documents. All these years. All the nights I had replayed that confrontation, wondering what I could have done differently. Wondering if I had just agreed to Harvard, just played along, maybe they would have let me stay. Maybe they would have loved me. But it had never been about that. It had never been about me at all. It had been about protecting Harold's secrets, about eliminating anyone who might expose his theft. I kept copies, Marcus said. After Harold pushed me out, I made duplicates of everything I could access. Hid them where he would never think to look. Where? The old boathouse, on the edge of the estate property. Do you remember it? I did remember. Miller's Pond. Marcus used to take me fishing there when I was 7 or 8 years old, before Harold banned him from family gatherings, before he disappeared from my life entirely. I have kept a storage box there for 15 years, Marcus said. Harold forgot the place exists. It is outside the main property line. Technically belongs to the county now. Meet me there before you go to dinner, he continued. 3 o'clock. I will give you everything I have. With my documents and whatever you have gathered, you will have enough to bury him. Legally, completely. Why now? I asked. Why help me do this? Because you are the only one brave enough to finish what I could not. And because Harold needs to pay for what he did to both of us. I ended the call and stared out the window. Diana glanced at me in the rearview mirror. That confirms what I suspected, she said. The embezzlement was not a one-time thing. It is ongoing. What do you mean? My forensic accountants found patterns in Whitmore Textile's current books. Money still moving to the same offshore structure Marcus described, just smaller amounts now, harder to trace. So when they ask me for $6 million, you are not being asked to save the company, Diana said flatly. You are being asked to fund Harold's continued theft, and they have no idea you know. Cold satisfaction spread through my chest. They thought I was a desperate daughter, eager to buy my way back into the family. They had no idea I was the executioner. There is one more thing, Diana added. I found another beneficiary in Whitmore Textiles' old shareholder records. Someone who should have inherited a significant stake but never received it. Who? Your grandmother, Ruth Whitmore. She held 40% of the company when she died 2 years ago. I went still. Grandma Ruth. The only person in that house who had ever truly loved me. According to probate records, Diana continued, her shares were transferred to Harold as sole executor of her estate. But there is no record of a formal will being filed. Harold claimed she died intestate. Without a will, he inherited everything by default as next of kin. You think there was a will, I said. And Harold hid it. I think there is a reason your grandmother's lawyer retired to Costa Rica 3 months after she died. Diana's jaw tightened. I am still digging. I thought about Ruth's ring on my finger, the unopened letter in my bag, the woman who had loved me when no one else did. What else had she tried to leave me? What else had Harold stolen? The Escalade crossed into Greenwich town limits, familiar streets lined with stone walls and manicured hedges. European cars in circular driveways, women in cashmere walking small dogs despite the cold. I saw the country club where Vivian had played tennis every Tuesday, the boutique where Charlotte and I used to shop for school clothes, the church where they had held my funeral. This town had buried me, mourned me, moved on without me. Now I was back, and I was going to make them all remember. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I opened it. 4 words that made my blood freeze. I know you are here. No signature, no context. Just a warning from someone who was watching. Someone knew I had returned. Someone wanted me to know I was not as invisible as I thought. Diana saw my face change. What is it? I showed her the screen. Her expression hardened. Someone in the family talked, she said. Or someone has been watching the family, waiting for exactly this moment. I stared at the message. Then I put the phone away. Whoever you are, I thought, you are about to find out what happens when you corner a ghost. The anonymous text haunted me through the morning, but it changed nothing. Diana ran a trace on the number from our suite at the Delamar Hotel. Burner phone. Purchased with cash in Stamford the day before. No way to identify the sender. Whoever was watching me had been careful. Professional, even. It could be Harold, Diana said, setting down her phone. Or Derek. Or someone we have not identified yet. Someone in that house talked, or someone has been monitoring the family and waiting for you to make a move. I stood at the window, watching snow begin to fall over Greenwich Harbor. Either way, I am on the right track. Someone is nervous. Someone wants me to know I am being watched. Does that concern you? I turned to face her. It confirms I am a threat. That is exactly what I want to be. Diana nodded slowly. The trace was a dead end, but the meeting with Marcus was not. I had 3 hours before dinner. 3 hours to arm myself with the truth. The roads grew narrower as we left the wealthy center of Greenwich behind. Old stone walls lined with dead ivy, rusted mailboxes with faded names. The manicured perfection of the town center gave way to something older, wilder, forgotten. I recognized the path before Diana even turned. The entrance to the county land that bordered the Whitmore estate. A service road that had not been maintained in years. Memories surfaced uninvited. I was 7 years old, sitting in Marcus's truck, fishing poles rattling in the back. He had driven this same road every Saturday morning the summer before Harold cut him out of our lives. I remember the smell of coffee from his thermos, the way he whistled old jazz songs under his breath, the patience in his hands as he taught me to bait a hook. Fishing is just like business, he had told me once. Timing is everything. You wait, you watch, and when the moment comes, you pull. I had not understood then. I understood now. The boathouse appeared through the trees, smaller than I remembered. Weathered gray boards and a sagging roof, half hidden by overgrown brush. A single figure stood on the wooden dock that stretched over the still dark water of Miller's Pond. I told Diana to wait in the car. This conversation needed to happen alone first. The cold hit me as I stepped out. November wind cutting through my coat, carrying the smell of dead leaves and frozen earth. I walked toward the dock, my boots crunching on frost-covered gravel. Marcus turned as I approached. 61 years old now, gray hair, thinner than I remembered. But his eyes were the same, kind, tired, determined. For a long moment neither of us spoke. 15 years of silence stretched between us like the dark water of the pond. Then he opened his arms. "Look at you. You survived." I hesitated. I was not a hugger anymore, had not been for years. Physical affection required vulnerability, and vulnerability was a luxury I could not afford. But something in his face broke through my walls. The way he looked at me, not like a business opportunity or a problem to be managed, like family, like someone who had been waiting 15 years for this moment. I let him hold me. Just for a moment, just long enough to remember what family should feel like. He pulled back and studied my face. "You look like your grandmother. Ruth would be so proud." "I never got to say goodbye to her," I said. "They did not tell me she died until months later." His jaw tightened. That was Harold's doing. He controlled everything about Ruth's final days, kept everyone away, especially anyone who might have known about her wishes. He paused. "Ruth tried to contact you, Serena. In the months before she died. Harold intercepted every letter." The words hit like a physical blow. I had always assumed Ruth believed the lie, that she had mourned me and moved on like everyone else. The thought that she had tried to find me, that she had known somehow, that Harold had stolen even that from us. "She developed dementia in her final 2 years," Marcus continued, "but she had lucid periods. During those times, she asked about you constantly, demanded to see you. Harold told her you were dead, showed her the obituary. She had to grieve you twice. Once for the accident, and then again every time she forgot and had to be told again." My hands started shaking, rage building in my chest like a furnace. "It was cruel," Marcus said quietly. "Even for Harold, it was unspeakably cruel. Ruth wrote letters to you. I do not know how many. Harold destroyed them, but I managed to save one." He reached into his coat and pulled out a yellowed envelope. My name was written on the front in shaky handwriting I recognized instantly. Grandma Ruth's handwriting. I could not open it. Not here, not yet. I tucked it into my coat pocket, close to my heart. "Ruth knew about Harold's theft," Marcus said. "She was the one who first told me something was wrong with the books." He led me toward the boathouse. The door groaned on rusted hinges. Inside, dust motes floated in gray light filtering through gaps in the walls. Old fishing equipment hung from hooks. A metal storage box sat in the corner, padlocked and waiting. Marcus pulled a key from around his neck. "I have worn this for 15 years, waiting for someone brave enough to use what is inside." He unlocked the box. Inside were folders, photocopies, bank statements, transfer records. Everything he had managed to copy before Harold forced him out. 22 years of systematic embezzlement, Marcus explained as I flipped through the documents. Money routed through 3 shell companies to offshore accounts in the Caymans, forged signatures, falsified audits, bribed accountants. He pointed to a specific page. Total confirmed theft, at least $4.2 million. And that is just what I could prove. The real number is probably double. My eyes caught a document dated 12 years ago, a transfer of $200,000. The same week I had been expelled from my family. "This is what you saw in his study," Marcus said, following my gaze. "This specific transfer. He was moving a large sum, got careless with the paperwork. When you mentioned seeing documents, Harold panicked. He could not risk you understanding what you had seen. He destroyed my life to cover up a wire transfer. He destroyed your life to protect himself." Marcus's voice was hard. "That is all Harold has ever done." I closed the folder. "There is something else you need to know. Harold is not the only snake in that house. Charlotte's husband, Derek." Marcus nodded, surprised I knew the name. "I have kept tabs on the family. Derek Reed is Harold's protege. Took over as chief financial officer 3 years ago. But Derek is also playing his own game. He has contacts at Morrison Industries, Marcus continued, Whitmore's biggest competitor. Derek has been meeting with their executives in secret. Selling information, trade secrets, client lists, manufacturing specifications. Does Harold know? I do not think so. Harold is too arrogant to suspect someone he handpicked. But Derek is not trying to save the company. He is trying to strip it for parts before it collapses. I filed the information away. Another weapon, another pressure point. Be careful with Derek, Marcus warned. He is not like Harold. Harold is patient and cold. Derek is desperate, and desperate men do dangerous things. Why did you never go to the authorities? I asked. With all this evidence? Marcus looked away, shame in his eyes. Because Harold had leverage on me. A mistake I made when I was young. He threatened to expose it if I talked. I was a coward, Serena. I chose my reputation over doing the right thing. He turned back to face me. I cannot undo what I failed to do. But you can finish it. Take the company. Expose Harold. Make him pay for what he did to you, to Ruth, to everyone he has destroyed. I will testify if it comes to that. Whatever you need, what do you want in return? Just one thing. When it is over, tell the world the truth about what Harold did to Ruth. She deserves that much. I carried the box of documents back to the Escalade. Diana's eyes widened as she reviewed the contents. This is enough to file criminal charges, she said. Not just civil, criminal. Good. I want options. Marcus stood by the boathouse watching us prepare to leave. I will not be at dinner, he said. Harold would never allow it. But I will be nearby if you need me. Thank you, I said. For the money, for the documents, for not forgetting me. You are not easy to forget, Serena. You never were. I looked toward the hill where the Whitmore estate sat invisible beyond the trees. Time to meet my murderers. My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. I opened it expecting another threat. Instead, I found a photograph, a scan of a document, a page from a will, Grandma Ruth's will. My name was clearly visible in the beneficiary section. The image cut off before I could read the full terms. Deliberately incomplete. The text below read, "He has been lying. She left everything to you. Meet me at St. Andrew's Church at 5 p.m. Come alone. A friend, St. Andrew's, the church where they had held my funeral." Diana leaned over to look at the screen. It could be a trap. I stared at the photograph. My grandmother's signature at the bottom. My name in the line that should have guaranteed my inheritance. Maybe, I said. But if that will is real, I need to see it. The anonymous texter was not a threat. They were an ally. But who? And why the church where my family had buried me alive? There was only one way to find out. St. Andrew's Episcopal Church rose against the gray November sky, like a monument to everything my family had stolen from me. I stood in the empty parking lot, staring at the heavy wooden doors and the stained glass windows dark in the fading afternoon light. This was where they had held my funeral, where my parents had stood at the altar and lied to 200 guests about their dead daughter, where Vivian had dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief, and Harold had delivered a eulogy so moving that people still talked about it years later. Diana had advised against coming alone. She sat in the Escalade at the edge of the lot, engine running, ready to intervene if this turned out to be a trap. But whoever had sent that photograph of Ruth's will had been specific. Come alone. A friend. I pushed open the heavy door. The hinges groaned. Inside, the church was dim and silent, lit only by the gray light filtering through the windows. Rows of empty pews stretched toward the altar. The smell of old wood and candle wax hung in the cold air. A figure sat in the front pew. Female, alone, waiting. My hand moved to my phone. One tap and Diana would be through those doors in seconds. I walked down the center aisle, my footsteps echoing against the vaulted ceiling. Each step brought me closer to the spot where my casket had supposedly rested 11 years ago. The figure turned. It was Rosa Martinez, the Whitmore family's housekeeper for 30 years, the woman who had opened the front door when I arrived for holidays as a child, who had snuck me cookies from the kitchen when Vivian put me on diets, who had braided my hair when my mother was too busy with charity events to notice I existed. Rosa was 63 now. Gray streaked her dark hair, deep lines framed her eyes. But she still carried herself with the quiet dignity I remembered. "Sit down, Miss Serena." She gestured to the pew beside her. "We do not have much time." I sat. Of all the people I had expected to find here, the housekeeper was not on the list. "You sent the texts," I said. "You have Ruth's will." Rosa nodded. She reached into her worn leather purse and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "I have worked for your family since before you were born," she said. "I have seen everything, heard everything. I was there the night your father threw you out. I watched from the kitchen window as you walked into the rain with that little suitcase. I wanted to run after you. I wanted to help. But I was afraid." Her voice caught. "I have been afraid for 30 years. But your grandmother, Mrs. Ruth, she made me promise." "Promise what?" Rosa pressed the envelope into my hands. "Mrs. Ruth knew she was dying. She knew your father would try to control her estate. 3 months before her death, during one of her lucid periods, she called her own lawyer. Not Mr. Harold's lawyer, her own. A man named Gerald Hutchins in Hartford." She drew a shaky breath. "She made a new will. She gave me a copy. She told me to hide it somewhere your father would never think to look. She said, 'Harold will try to steal everything. But Serena is my legacy. Make sure she gets what is hers.'" I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a legal document. Last will and testament of Ruth Eleanor Whitmore, dated 18 months before her death. Notarized. Witnessed by 2 nurses from her care facility. I scanned the pages. The words blurred and sharpened as I read. "To my son Harold," the will stated in formal legal language, "I leave nothing. He has already taken more than his share. To my granddaughter Charlotte Whitmore, I leave 25% of my shares in Whitmore Textiles, my jewelry collection, and personal effects of her choosing." And then the paragraph that made my heart stop. "To my granddaughter, Serena Grace Whitmore, I leave 40% of my shares in Whitmore Textiles, the Whitmore estate property and all structures thereon, a trust fund valued at $1.2 million, and all my love, which her father tried to bury but could never kill. 40%. Ruth had left me 40% of the company. Combined with the 45% of debt I already controlled, that meant I owned 85% of everything Harold thought was his." Rosa watched my face as I processed what I was reading. "Mr. Harold does not know this copy exists," she said quietly. "He destroyed the original. He thinks he won. But Mrs. Ruth was smarter than he ever knew." I looked up at her. "Why did you wait until now? Why not give this to me years ago? I did not know where you were. Mrs. Ruth did not tell me to protect you. She said you would come back when you were ready, when you were strong enough. She said I would know when the time was right." Rosa's eyes glistened. "When I saw you walk into that house yesterday, when I heard you were coming for Thanksgiving dinner, I knew. Mrs. Ruth was right. You came back, and you came back powerful." She leaned closer. "You need to be careful tonight, Miss Serena. That house is full of snakes. Mr. Harold is desperate. He has been drinking more than usual. Mrs. Vivian is terrified of losing her status, and Mr. Derek, Miss Charlotte's husband, he is scheming something. I have heard him on secret phone calls. I heard him mention a company called Morrison. Derek, selling secrets to the competition." Marcus had been right. "And Miss Charlotte," Rosa continued, "she is not the enemy you think she is. She has been a prisoner in that house as much as you ever were." Before I could ask what she meant, Rosa stood abruptly. "I cannot be seen with you. If Mr. Harold finds out I kept this will, he will destroy me the way he destroyed everyone else. Why risk it? Why help me after all these years? Because Mrs. Ruth asked me to. Rosa's voice was firm despite the tremor in her hands. And because what they did to you was evil. Someone has to make it right. She slipped out a side door before I could thank her, gone as quickly as she had appeared. I sat alone in the empty church, holding my grandmother's will. The woman who had loved me most had planned for this, had believed I would return. Ruth's faith in me felt like a benediction from beyond the grave. Diana reviewed the documents on the drive to the estate. Her eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. "This is ironclad," she said. "Harold's probate filing was fraudulent. He claimed intestate succession when a valid will existed. Combined with the embezzlement evidence, we have grounds for criminal prosecution. This is not just a takeover anymore. This is Harold going to prison. Not yet." I watched the familiar streets of Greenwich pass by the window. I want him to know I have everything before I use it. I want to see his face. The Whitmore estate appeared on the hill as we rounded the final curve. Tudor mansion, stone walls, manicured grounds gone slightly wild from neglect. Every window glowed with warm light, projecting the illusion of a happy home preparing for a holiday celebration. I noticed the decay Diana could not see, paint peeling on the gatehouse. The fountain in the circular driveway not running, hedges untrimmed and growing ragged. The empire was crumbling from the edges inward. The front door opened before I could knock. Rosa again, her professional mask perfectly in place. No hint of our earlier meeting. "Miss Serena, welcome home." The words landed strangely. This had never been home. This had been a performance space where I played the role of acceptable daughter until I failed to hit my marks. The foyer was exactly as I remembered. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine. Curved staircase sweeping toward the second floor. Oil paintings of Whitmore ancestors staring down with perpetual disapproval. But the chandelier seemed dimmer. Some crystals were missing. Fresh flowers sat on the entry table, but they were grocery store arrangements, not the custom florist designs Vivian used to insist upon. The smell hit me next. Furniture polish, roasting turkey. And underneath it, something harder to name. Desperation, maybe. Fear wearing expensive perfume. Vivian appeared from the living room. She wore a burgundy dress that probably cost more than the flowers. Diamonds glittered at her throat. Her smile was wide and welcoming and utterly false. "Serena, darling, look at you." Air kisses, no actual contact. Her hands trembled slightly. "We are so glad you could come. It has been too long." 11 years, I said flatly. "But who is counting?" Harold emerged from his study before Vivian could respond. Scotch in hand, silver hair perfectly combed. He moved with the same commanding presence I remembered, but his face was grayer, more lined. The cost of maintaining illusions. "Serena." His voice carried no warmth, no pretense of affection, just cold assessment. "I see you have done well for yourself. No thanks to you." The temperature in the foyer dropped 10 degrees. Vivian's laugh was too loud, too bright, desperately filling the silence. Then Derek appeared. Charlotte's husband, 42 years old. Handsome, in a predatory way. He crossed the foyer with his hand extended and a smile that showed too many teeth. "The prodigal daughter returns. I have heard so much about you." He gripped my hand too firmly. His eyes darted to the leather portfolio Diana carried. Sweat glistened on his upper lip despite the cool air in the house. I noticed everything, filed everything away. "Where is Charlotte?" I asked. "Upstairs." Vivian's voice wavered slightly. "Finishing getting ready. You know how she is." But something in her tone suggested there was more to the story. A door creaked on the second floor, footsteps on the landing. I looked up. Charlotte stood at the top of the staircase. 33 years old now, but she looked older, exhausted, thin in a way that suggested stress rather than fashion. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. She descended slowly, each step deliberate. When she reached the bottom, she stopped directly in front of me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. 11 years of silence stretched between us. The last time I had seen her face, it had been pressed against an upstairs window as I walked into the rain. Then Charlotte did something no one expected. She pulled me into a tight embrace. "I need to tell you something," she whispered directly into my ear, so quiet only I could hear. "Tonight, before dinner, they are going to try to use me against you." She pulled back slightly. Her eyes were desperate, pleading. "But I will not let them," she breathed. "Not anymore." Harold's voice cut through the moment. "Shall we move to the dining room? Dinner is almost ready." Charlotte gripped my hand one final time, a squeeze, a warning. Then she turned and walked toward the dining room, leaving me to wonder what secrets my sister had been keeping all these years. Charlotte grabbed my wrist before anyone else could move. "Actually," she said, her voice light and casual in a way that did not match the iron grip of her fingers, "I would love to show Serena the library renovations first. Girl talk. You know how it is." Vivian frowned. "Dinner will get cold, dear. 5 minutes, Mother. The turkey can wait." Harold's eyes narrowed. I caught his expression as Charlotte pulled me down the hallway, suspicion flickering behind the carefully controlled mask. He did not stop us, but he was watching, calculating. Derek took a step to follow. Vivian touched his arm. "Let them have their moment," she murmured. But her voice carried an undertone of warning I could not quite interpret. Charlotte moved fast, practically dragging me through the corridors of the house I had once known by heart. Past the formal sitting room, past the conservatory where Vivian used to host her garden club, past the portrait gallery where generations of Whitmore faces stared down with permanent disapproval. The library door was heavy oak, original to the house. Charlotte pushed it open, pulled me inside, and locked it behind us. For a moment she just stood there with her back pressed against the door, breathing hard, like she had just escaped something, like the simple act of getting me alone had required every ounce of courage she possessed. The library looked the same as I remembered, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes no one ever read, leather chairs positioned around a fireplace that sat cold and unlit, the smell of old paper and furniture polish and money. But there were gaps in the shelves now, spaces where valuable first editions used to sit. Sold, probably. Another sign of the decay eating away at the Whitmore empire from the inside. "We do not have long," Charlotte said. "Derek will come looking for me." I studied my sister in the dim light. Up close, the damage was impossible to miss. Dark circles under her eyes, poorly concealed with expensive makeup. Weight loss that spoke of stress rather than health. And on her wrist, where her sleeve had ridden up when she grabbed me, the edge of a bruise. Dark purple fading to yellow. This was not the golden child I remembered. This was a prisoner wearing designer clothes. "I need you to know something before we go in there," Charlotte said. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking. "I knew you were alive." The words landed like a slap. Whatever I had expected her to say, it was not that. "Not at first," she continued quickly. "The first 2 years, I believed the story. I grieved. I cried myself to sleep every night wondering if I could have done something different. If I had just stood up to Dad that night, if I had run after you." She broke off. Drew a shaky breath. But then I found a letter, in Dad's study, a private investigator's report. "Tracking your movements in Seattle." I went cold. How long? I was 24 when I found it. 3 years after the funeral, the report had photos of you, walking to work, leaving your apartment, sitting in a coffee shop with a laptop. She looked at me with eyes full of a guilt she had carried for 8 years. I realized then that you were alive, that they had lied to everyone, that they had made me mourn my own sister for nothing. Why did you not find me? The question came out harder than I intended. If you knew, why did you not come to Seattle? Why did you let me think I was alone? "I was going to." Charlotte's voice cracked. "I had my bag packed. I had a flight booked. I was going to fly out the next morning and find you and beg you to forgive me. But Dad caught me. He found the report in my room. Her whole body seemed to shrink at the memory. He told me if I ever tried to contact you, he would do to me what he did to Uncle Marcus. He would destroy me, cut me off, tell everyone I was mentally unstable. He said he would make sure I never worked, never married well, never had anything of my own. She wrapped her arms around herself. I was 24. I had nothing, no money of my own, no skills, no life outside this family. I was terrified. So you stayed, I said. You played the perfect daughter. I did not have a choice. Or I thought I did not. The bitterness in her voice surprised me. This was not the Charlotte I remembered. The obedient older sister who always colored inside the lines, who never questioned, who made our parents proud in all the ways I could not. You do not understand what it has been like, she said. Every decision controlled, my career, my friends, my marriage. Derek, I said. Dad chose him for me. 4 years ago. Derek was ambitious, connected, willing to do Dad's bidding. He was not a husband. He was a handler. Someone to keep me in line, to report back if I stepped out of bounds. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. We have not shared a bedroom in 2 years. He has other interests, other women. But divorce is not allowed. It would damage the family image. She rolled up her sleeve slightly. The bruise was worse than I had first thought. Dark purple spreading across her wrist like spilled ink. Derek is not just unfaithful. He is cruel when he drinks. And he drinks every night now. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The exhaustion, the fear, the desperation barely hidden behind expensive makeup and a designer dress. Rosa had been right. Charlotte was not my enemy. She was another victim. I know about Derek, I said quietly. About Morrison Industries. Charlotte's eyes widened. How? Uncle Marcus. He has contacts. Relief and fear warred across her face. Then you know Derek is playing both sides. He is supposed to be saving the company, but he is actually selling it piece by piece. She moved closer, lowering her voice even though we were alone. He has been meeting with Morrison's executives for months, selling client lists, supplier contracts, proprietary manufacturing processes. He thinks he is being clever. Building a golden parachute before the company crashes. Does Harold know? I do not think so. Dad is too arrogant to suspect someone he handpicked. But if the company goes bankrupt, Dad goes down. And Derek does not care. He will land somewhere else with his payoff. I will be left with nothing. She gripped my hands. I have proof. Emails, meeting schedules, photos of him with Morrison's chief executive. I have been collecting evidence for 2 years, waiting for the right moment. Where is it? Hidden. In a place Derek would never think to look. Our old treehouse in the back garden, behind the hedge maze. He does not even know it exists. She squeezed my fingers. I can get them for you. Tonight. After dinner. Whatever you need to destroy him. Why? I asked. After all these years of silence, why help me now? Charlotte met my eyes. For the first time since I had arrived, I saw something other than fear in her expression. Something that looked like resolve. Because I am done being their puppet. She said each word like she was cutting a chain. And because I owe you 11 years of sisterhood, I can never get back. She drew a breath. I know you came here for revenge. I can see it in your eyes. You are going to destroy them. I did not deny it. I am not asking you to spare them, Charlotte continued. Harold and Vivian deserve whatever is coming. I am asking you to let me help. And when it is over, give me a chance to start over. What do you want? Freedom from Derek. A divorce Dad cannot block. Enough money to disappear somewhere no one knows the Whitmore name. And a chance to know my sister again. If you will let me. I studied her face, looking for deception, looking for the catch. 11 years of survival had taught me to trust no one. But what I saw in Charlotte's eyes was not manipulation. It was desperation. Hope. The same expression I had seen in my own mirror during those first terrible months in Seattle. "Trust is not something I give easily," I said finally. "Not anymore. Get me the documents first. Then we will talk." Charlotte nodded. She understood. Actions, not words. A rattling sound at the door made us both freeze. Someone was trying the handle. "Charlotte?" Derek's voice came through the heavy wood. "Everything okay in there?" Charlotte's face went pale. She quickly rolled her sleeve down to cover the bruise. "Fine," she called out. "Just showing Serena the new bookshelves. Be out in a minute. Dinner is being served. Harold is getting impatient." Charlotte grabbed my hands one final time. "Whatever happens in there, do not trust anything Derek says. He will try to charm you. That is what he does. I have dealt with men like Derek my whole career." Charlotte almost smiled, the first genuine expression I had seen from her. I forgot. "You are not the little sister anymore, are you?" "No, I am not." She took a breath, composed herself. The mask of the perfect Whitmore daughter slid back into place so smoothly it was almost frightening. A lifetime of practice. She unlocked the door and opened it. Derek stood in the hallway, smile too wide, eyes too sharp. He looked past Charlotte to me, then to the space between us, calculating what we might have discussed. "Ladies." He stepped back and gestured toward the dining room. "Shall we?" Charlotte took his offered arm without looking at him. I watched the way she held herself, rigid, controlled, the posture of someone who had learned to survive by making herself small. I followed them down the hallway, Diana falling into step beside me. "What did she tell you?" Diana whispered. "Later. She is on our side. Are you sure?" I watched Charlotte's rigid back, the way she flinched almost imperceptibly when Derek's hand touched her spine. She is as much a victim as I was. Different cage, same prison. The dining room opened before us. Crystal and china and silver candlesticks, Harold at the head of the table, Vivian fussing with napkins, the Thanksgiving turkey sitting in the center like a prop in a play no one wanted to perform. I took my assigned seat, directly across from Harold, eye to eye with the man who had thrown me into the rain 11 years ago and told the world I was dead. He raised his wine glass, a toast, he said, to family reunions and to new opportunities. He looked at me with the same cold calculation I remembered from that night in his study. "We have a lot to discuss, Serena. I hope you came prepared to listen." I lifted my glass but did not drink. "Actually, Father, I came prepared to talk. And I think you are going to want to hear what I have to say." His smile froze. For the first time since I had walked through the door, uncertainty flickered across his face. The dinner was served. The battle was about to begin. The dining room was a stage set for a performance no one believed. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over a mahogany table designed to seat 12. Only 6 chairs were occupied. Harold at the head, Vivian at the foot, Charlotte and Derek on one side, Diana and I on the other. The seating arrangement was deliberate. Harold wanted to look down the length of the table at me. Power positioning, the same tactics he had used in boardrooms for 40 years. Rosa moved silently around the table, serving wine. Our eyes met briefly. Her face revealed nothing, but I knew she was watching, waiting, ready to testify to whatever happened here tonight. The turkey sat in the center of the table, golden and steaming. Cranberry sauce in a crystal dish, fresh bread in a silver basket. All the trappings of a happy family holiday. The illusion was almost perfect. Almost. I noticed the things that did not fit. The silverware was not the good set. The wine was mid-range, not the vintage Harold used to insist upon. The flowers were grocery store arrangements, not custom designs. The decay was not just in the gardens and gatehouse. It had reached the dinner table. Vivian launched into small talk with desperate energy. "Serena, you must tell us about Seattle. Is it as rainy as they say? I have heard the coffee is wonderful. I gave her nothing. Yes, sometimes. It is fine." Derek tried next. "I have been reading about your company. Meridian logistics, right? Impressive growth trajectory. You have done your homework. His smile widened. I like to know who I am having dinner with. I watched him reach for his wine glass, watched the slight tremor in his hand, the sweat on his upper lip despite the cool air. Derek was nervous about something. I filed it away. Charlotte sat rigid beside him, pushing food around her plate without eating. When Derek asked if she was hungry, she murmured something about being tired. His hand covered hers on the table, possessive, controlling. She did not flinch. She had learned not to. Harold ate in silence, watching, calculating, waiting for the right moment to make his move. He was letting Vivian and Derek soften the target before he struck. I recognized the tactic. I had used it myself in 100 negotiations. Finally, Harold set down his fork. The small sound silenced the table. Enough pleasantries, he said. Serena, you know why we asked you here, do I? Do not be coy. It does not suit you. He leaned back in his chair, the picture of a man in control. Whitmore Textiles is facing some temporary cash flow challenges, market conditions, supply chain disruptions, nothing we cannot survive with proper investment. He paused. Let the words settle. We need $6 million to bridge the gap. A loan, secured against company assets. In return, we are prepared to offer you a seat on the board, a voice in family decisions, a chance to come home. His voice softened. The concerned father routine. I know we have had our differences, Serena. But you are still a Whitmore. This company is your heritage, your birthright. Family helps family. That is what we do. I let the silence stretch, watched his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Harold was not used to waiting. Interesting, I said finally. Please continue. Vivian sensed the pitch was not landing. Time for emotional reinforcement. Serena, sweetheart, we have missed you so much. She dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. Not a day went by that I did not think about you. When we lost you, it nearly destroyed me. Lost me? I let the words hang in the air. That is an interesting way to describe holding a funeral for a living person. The table went silent. Even the candles seemed to stop flickering. That was a misunderstanding, Vivian stammered. A terrible miscommunication. A miscommunication. I kept my voice level, flat. You gave a eulogy, Mother. Dad ordered a casket. You collected donations in my name. You told people I died from an overdose so you could play the grieving parents without anyone asking uncomfortable questions. Vivian looked to Harold for rescue. He did not move. Derek leaned forward. I am sure there is context we are missing here. Ancient history, right? The important thing is you are here now. I turned to him slowly. You were not here then, Derek. So perhaps you should stay out of conversations you do not understand. His smile hardened at the edges. First crack in the charming facade. Let me make sure I understand the situation correctly. I began ticking off points on my fingers. 11 years ago, you threw me out for wanting to pursue my own career. You staged a funeral, told everyone I died in a car accident. You let Grandma Ruth believe I was dead, made her grieve me for years. And now that your company is failing, you want me to write you a check for $6 million. Harold interrupted. You are oversimplifying. Am I? Which part did I get wrong? No one spoke. Vivian's tears were real now, though whether from guilt or fear of losing everything I could not tell. Charlotte stared at her plate. Derek's leg bounced under the table. What we did was to protect the family reputation, Harold said finally. You were making choices that would have damaged us. We had to contain the situation. Contain the situation. I repeated the words like they tasted of poison. Is that what you call erasing your daughter? I call it protecting what generations of Whitmores built. And what exactly were you protecting it from? I met his eyes. Me? Or from what I saw in your study the night you threw me out? Harold's hand froze halfway to his wine glass. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might be having a stroke. I do not know what you are talking about. Yes, you do. financial documents, transfer records, a shell company I did not recognize. You were 19. His voice was tight. You did not understand what you were looking at. I understand now. Under the table, Charlotte's foot pressed against mine. A signal. Solidarity. Keep going. Diana opened her portfolio. Perhaps this would be a good time to discuss the actual financial state of Whitmore Textiles. Who the hell are you to? Harold started. She is my attorney. I cut him off. And my advisor, and she has been analyzing your company for 2 years. Diana's voice was clinical, precise. Mr. Whitmore, you told Serena you need $6 million for cash flow challenges, but your problems go much deeper than that. She read from her notes. Outstanding debt across 7 creditors, 3 pending lawsuits from suppliers, a mortgage payment 60 days overdue. Your company is not struggling, it is dying, and it has been dying for a long time. You do not have the right. Your creditors are a matter of public record. I simply connected the dots. Derek reached for his water glass. His hand was shaking visibly now. There are also certain irregularities in your accounting, Diana continued, going back 2 decades. Would you like me to continue? Harold stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor like a scream. This dinner is over. I will not sit here and be interrogated in my own home. Sit down, father. Something in my voice stopped him. He had never heard that tone from me before. For 11 years I had been the ghost, the erased daughter, the failure. Now I was something else entirely. Slowly, Harold sat. You asked me here to give you money, I said, but I did not come to give you anything. I came to take everything you have left. Dead silence. The candles flickered. Vivian's mouth opened and closed without sound. Derek looked like he might be sick. Charlotte's eyes were wide, but there was something new in them, something that looked like hope. Harold stared at me across the table. Father and daughter. The predator and the prey who had learned to bite back. You cannot be serious. I reached into Diana's portfolio and removed a single document. Let me show you how serious I am. I slid the document across the polished mahogany directly to Harold. The room held its breath. Everyone waiting. Even the candle flames seemed to freeze. I did not rush. 11 years of patience had taught me the power of silence. I let Harold stare at the paper without touching it. Let the anticipation build. This is not a request for charity, I said. This is not a negotiation for a loan. This is an acquisition offer. For Whitmore Textiles. All of it. Harold's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion. Disbelief. Then something that looked almost like fear. An acquisition offer? You cannot be serious. I have never been more serious about anything in my life. Diana took over, pulling additional documents from the portfolio and spreading them across the table like a dealer laying out cards. Allow me to walk you through the key terms. Her voice was clinical, precise, the voice of someone who had done this 100 times before. Full acquisition of Whitmore Textiles at fair market value. Given current debts, that value is approximately $1.2 million. Harold's face went purple. 1.2 million? This company is worth 20 times that. This company has $23 million in debt against $14 million in assets, Diana replied without missing a beat. You have negative equity, Mr. Whitmore. The offer is generous. She continued reading. All outstanding debts to be assumed by the acquiring entity, Meridian Holdings, a subsidiary of my client's company. Harold and Vivian Whitmore to resign from all positions, effective immediately upon signing. A transition period of 30 days for orderly handover of operations. A severance package of $150,000. She looked up. Generous given the circumstances. Harold slammed his palm on the table. Crystal rattled. Wine sloshed from glasses. I built this company. 3 generations of Whitmores ran it into the ground. I kept my voice level. I am offering to save what is left. This is absurd. Harold's voice rose. I will find other investors. I will go to the banks. The banks will not help you. I let the words land. I made sure of that. He froze. What do you mean? For the past 18 months, through a series of shell companies, I have been acquiring Whitmore Textiles debt. The mortgage on this estate, I own it. The revolving credit line, I own it. The supplier debts, the equipment loans, even Mother's personal credit accounts. All purchased at discount from creditors eager to get something rather than nothing. I watched the color drain from his face. As of last week, I hold 45% of your total debt obligations. I am your largest creditor. Derek spoke for the first time since the confrontation began. That is not possible. Those transactions would have required proper legal structure? Diana cut him off. Patience? Capital? My client has all three. Vivian's voice came out as a whisper. Harold, what is she saying? What does this mean? Harold did not answer. He understood exactly what it meant. It means if I call in those debts tomorrow, you lose everything. I kept my eyes on my father. The company, the house, the cars, everything. The acquisition offer is not charity, Father. It is mercy. Harold looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. The daughter he had thrown away had become something he had never anticipated. A predator, a threat, an executioner. Vivian broke first. This cannot be happening. This is our home, our life. She turned to me, mascara running down her cheeks. How could you do this to your own family? How could I? I let the question hang. You held a funeral for me, Mother. You told people I overdosed. You let Grandma Ruth die thinking I was dead. You erased me. I am simply returning the favor. That was Harold's decision, she pleaded. I just went along with it. I did not have a choice. You always have a choice. You chose him. You chose your reputation. You chose everything except your daughter. She collapsed into sobs. I felt nothing. Derek leaned forward, switching to his deal-making voice, the smooth operator trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Serena, let us be reasonable here. There has clearly been miscommunication over the years. But we are all business people. Perhaps we can find middle ground, a partnership structure. You provide capital, we provide operational expertise. Together we could turn this company around. I studied him. The practiced smile, the calculated charm, the desperation behind his eyes. Interesting proposal, Derek. Tell me, does Morrison Industries know you are offering to partner with me? His face went white. I do not know what you have had 3 meetings with their executive team in the past 4 months. You have been selling them client lists, supplier contracts, manufacturing specifications. Did you think no one was watching? That is a lie. Derek stood abruptly. Charlotte fabricated. We have photographs, Diana said calmly. Meeting receipts, a paper trail. It is true, Derek. Everyone turned to Charlotte. Her voice was quiet but steady. The voice of someone who had finally decided to stop being afraid. I have seen the emails, she continued. I know what you have been doing. Derek turned to her with a look of pure venom. For a moment, I thought he might strike her right there at the table. But there were too many witnesses. Even Derek was not that stupid. Charlotte, what the hell are you doing? What I should have done years ago, telling the truth. You ungrateful little... Derek, sit down. Harold's voice cut through. Now. Harold was calculating. I could see it in his eyes. Cutting losses. Derek was a liability now. Is what she is saying true? Harold demanded. Have you been dealing with Morrison? I was trying to create options. Derek's voice turned defensive. In case the company failed, you were betraying this family. Just like... Harold stopped, glanced at me, did not finish. But I finished for him. Just like you betrayed me? At least Derek's betrayal was about money. Yours was personal. Diana spoke again. For the record, Mr. Reed, insider trading and corporate espionage carry significant criminal penalties. I would recommend consulting your own attorney. Derek looked around the table. No allies, no escape, his carefully constructed world crumbling in real time. "This is not over," he snarled. Then he stormed out of the dining room. A moment later, the front door slammed. The silence he left behind was deafening. Charlotte sat straighter. Something had shifted in her. The terrified woman I had seen in the library was gone. In her place sat someone who had finally stopped being afraid. "Charlotte," Harold said, his voice dangerous. "What have you done? He is your husband." "He was never my husband, Dad." Charlotte's voice did not waver. "He was your employee. You assigned him to me like I was another asset to manage." She turned to face me. "Whatever you need from me, I will provide. Testimony, documents, whatever it takes." "Charlotte," Vivian pleaded, "think about what you are saying. I have thought about it, Mother, for 8 years, ever since I found out you let me grieve a sister who was still alive." Charlotte reached up and removed her wedding ring. She placed it on the table with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than Derek's slamming door. "I am not a Whitmore anymore. I do not want to be." I looked at my sister, at the bare finger where her ring had been, at the determination in her eyes. "Let me be clear about what happens next." I stood. Diana rose beside me. "You have 48 hours to sign the acquisition agreement. If you do, you walk away with the severance package. You get to start over somewhere else. Quietly." I paused. "Let the weight of the alternative settle. If you do not sign, I call in the debts. I file for foreclosure. I report the financial irregularities to the FBI. Everything becomes public." Harold found his voice. "You would destroy this family's name? Your own name? You destroyed my name 11 years ago. You buried it in a casket. I built a new one, a better one. Whitmore means nothing to me anymore. But I know it means everything to you. So choose carefully." I reached into my coat pocket, removed the envelope Rosa had given me. "One more thing. About Grandma Ruth's estate. You told the probate court she died without a will, that you inherited everything as next of kin." Harold's eyes fixed on the envelope. "She did die without, she did not, and I have the proof." I held up the envelope but did not open it. "Ruth left me 40% of this company, which means combined with the debt I hold, I already own 85% of Whitmore Textiles. The acquisition offer is not a threat, Father. It is a courtesy." I slid the envelope back into my pocket. 48 hours. I suggest you use them wisely." I walked toward the door. Charlotte fell into step behind me. Diana followed with the portfolio. Harold sat frozen at the head of his own table, surrounded by the ruins of his empire, watching his dead daughter walk out with everything he had ever built in her pocket. The front door closed behind us, and I did not look back. Rosa had shut it softly, one last glance of solidarity passing between us before the heavy oak separated us from the world inside. The night air hit my face like cold water, cleansing, sharp, real. Charlotte stood on the porch, shivering. She had walked out without her coat, without her purse, without anything except the clothes on her back and the absence of a wedding ring on her finger. "I do not have anywhere to go," she said. Her voice was small, lost. "Derek will be at the house." I looked at my sister, at the woman who had known I was alive for 8 years and said nothing, at the woman who had finally chosen to speak. "You are coming with us," I said. "We have a suite at the Delamar." "Are you sure?" "After everything? Get in the car, Charlotte. We will figure it out." As we pulled away from the estate, I glanced in the rearview mirror. A figure stood in the upstairs window. Harold, watching us leave. He did not move, just stood there, a silhouette against the light, like a man watching his own funeral procession. The suite at the Delamar felt like a sanctuary after the battlefield. Warm lighting, a fireplace crackling softly, views of Greenwich Harbor where snow was beginning to fall again. Diana poured drinks, whiskey for herself, water for me, tea for Charlotte, who sat on the edge of an armchair looking like she might shatter at any moment. "That went better than expected," Diana said. "It went exactly as planned." I paused. Except for Charlotte. I turned to my sister. Why did you not tell me you were going to do that? Announce yourself like that? I did not know I was going to. Charlotte wrapped her hands around the warm cup. I just saw Derek trying to worm his way out. I saw you exposing everything, and I thought, this is it. This is my only chance to choose. She met my eyes. So I chose. I studied her, looking for deception, finding only exhaustion and something that might have been relief. The relief of someone who had finally set down a weight they had carried for too long. You understand there is no going back now? I know. She almost smiled. I am counting on it. I retrieved the envelope from my coat. The will Rosa had given me. It was time to see the full picture. I spread the documents across the coffee table. Diana and Charlotte leaned in. Last will and testament of Ruth Eleanor Whitmore, dated 18 months before her death. Prepared by attorney Gerald Hutchins of Hutchins and Associates, Hartford. Not the family's regular firm. Witnessed by 2 nurses from Ruth's care facility, notarized and filed with Hutchins' office, but never submitted to probate. The bequests were laid out in precise legal language. To Harold Whitmore, I leave nothing. He has already taken more than his share. To Charlotte Whitmore, 25% of Whitmore Textiles shares, the family jewelry collection and personal effects of her choosing. And to Serena Grace Whitmore, 40% of Whitmore Textiles shares, the Whitmore estate property, a trust fund valued at $1.2 million, and all my love, which her father tried to bury but could never kill. Charlotte's voice was barely a whisper. She left you the house? The whole estate? She left me everything Harold told her I could not have. Because he told her I was dead. But if this will exists, Charlotte said slowly, why did it not go through probate? Diana pulled out another document. Because Harold made sure it did not. He filed a false affidavit claiming Ruth died intestate, without a will. That is not just fraud, that is a felony. She walked us through the crime. When Ruth died, Harold appointed himself executor. He claimed there was no will, filed for intestate succession. As her only living child, he inherited everything by default. He transferred Ruth's 40% stake in the company to himself. The trust fund meant for me? Harold liquidated it, used it to cover company debts. My inheritance, stolen before I even knew it existed. Attorney Hutchins retired to Costa Rica 3 months after Ruth's death, Diana continued. Paid off his mortgage, bought a boat, all cash. Harold bribed him, almost certainly. But Hutchins kept copies. Rosa found this one hidden in Ruth's Bible. Ruth must have suspected Harold would try something. I thought about my grandmother, frail and fading, but still fighting, still trying to protect me even as dementia clouded her mind. There may be more copies, Diana said. We are still searching. Charlotte spoke quietly. Prison. Dad could actually go to prison. He should have thought about that before he buried his daughter alive. I reached into my bag. There was one more envelope. The yellowed paper Marcus had given me at the boathouse. Ruth's letter, still unopened. Charlotte saw my hesitation. You have not opened it? I was waiting. I do not know for what. Open it now, please. I want to know what she said. My hands trembled as I broke the seal, the first sign of vulnerability I had shown all day. Ruth's handwriting filled the page, shaky but determined. I read aloud. My dearest Serena, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you have found your way back. I knew you would. You were always the strongest of us all. Your father told me you died. I did not believe him, not in my heart. A grandmother knows when her grandchild is still in this world. I tried to find you. I wrote letters. I hired people to search. Your father stopped everything. He called me confused, senile. Maybe I was by the end. But I was never wrong about you. Everything I have is yours. Not because I owe you, but because you earned it. You survived. You became something without them. That takes a kind of courage Harold will never understand. Burn it all down if you have to, sweetheart. Some houses deserve to fall. All my love, always. Grandma Ruth. Silence. The words hung in the air like smoke. For 11 years I had told myself I did not need them, did not need anyone. I had built walls, become stone, survived. But this. Ruth's voice from beyond the grave, believing in me when no one else did. It cracked something I had worked very hard to keep intact. Tears came, silent, rolling down my cheeks. The first tears I had shed since the night I left. Charlotte moved to sit beside me, hesitated, then put an arm around my shoulders. "She never stopped loving you," Charlotte whispered. "Even when they told her you were gone. She was the only one. No, she was not." We sat there together. Two sisters, grieving, healing, something broken beginning to mend. Diana quietly stepped out to give us privacy. I let myself feel it. The loss, the love, the fury, all of it, crashing through the walls I had built. Then I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my coat pocket, close to my heart. I wiped my eyes. "Ruth said to burn it down if I have to." Charlotte looked at me. "And will you?" "Every last piece of it." Diana returned. The moment of vulnerability had passed. There was still work to do. "We have 47 hours until the deadline," Diana said. "What is our next step? Harold will not sign willingly. He will spend the next 2 days looking for a way out. There is not one. We have covered every angle. He does not know that yet. He is arrogant enough to think he can outmaneuver us." Charlotte spoke up. "I can get the documents from the treehouse. The evidence on Derek. Is it safe?" "Derek might be watching the property. The treehouse is behind the hedge maze. No one has been there in years. Derek does not even know it exists. Go tomorrow morning, early, before anyone is awake." Charlotte nodded. "What will you do?" "Wait. Let Harold stew. Let him realize there is no escape." Late that night, my phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. "Who is this?" A voice. Male, older, scared. "Miss Whitmore, this is Gerald Hutchins, Ruth's attorney." I sat up straight. "I thought you were in Costa Rica." "I was. I came back when I heard you had returned. Your father paid me to disappear, to forget about Ruth's will. I took the money. I am not proud of it." He paused, drew a shaky breath. "But I kept copies. Everything. And I am willing to testify. Harold Whitmore threatened my family, Miss Whitmore, my grandchildren. That is why I ran. But I am tired of running. I am tired of being afraid of him." "Meet me tomorrow," he said. "I will give you everything. Bank records, threats he made, recordings. Why should I trust you? You took his money. Because Ruth was my client, my friend. And I failed her. This is my chance to make it right." Silence. I considered. Where? The cemetery. Ruth's grave. 10 in the morning. It seems appropriate. I hung up, stared at the phone, another piece falling into place, another ally emerging from Harold's wake of destruction. I thought of Ruth's words. "Burn it all down if you have to." The dead were speaking, the buried were rising, and by tomorrow, I would have everything I needed to reduce Harold Whitmore to ashes. Charlotte left the hotel at 6 in the morning while the estate was still dark. She told me later how it happened. The cold November air cutting through her jacket as she parked on a side road and slipped through the old service gate. The hedge maze overgrown now, tangled with dead vines and neglect. No one had maintained it in years. No one remembered it existed except two sisters who used to play hide-and-seek in its corridors a lifetime ago. The treehouse sat behind the maze, hidden by a wall of untrimmed boxwood. Built by our grandfather 50 years ago. Forgotten by everyone except Charlotte and me. She climbed the wooden ladder, hands shaking from cold and nerves. Inside, exactly where she had hidden it 2 years ago, was a metal lockbox, printed emails, photographs of Derek with Morrison executives, bank statements showing unexplained deposits, a USB drive with recorded phone calls. Everything she needed to destroy her husband. As she climbed down, a light turned on in the main house. Someone was awake. She ran. I met Gerald Hutchins at Greenwich Cemetery at 10 o'clock. He was already there when I arrived. A thin man in his 70s wearing a gray overcoat, standing before Ruth's grave with his hat in his hands. He looked like a man seeking absolution from a headstone that could not grant it. Ruth's grave marker was simple granite, the cheapest option. Harold had probably chosen it as one final insult. "I am sorry," Hutchins said without turning around. "For what I did, for what I did not do. Apologies do not interest me, evidence does." He handed me a thick envelope. Everything. Bank records showing Harold's payments to me. Correspondence threatening my family. The original will filing that Harold ordered me to destroy. I kept a copy. He pulled out his phone. There is also a recording. Harold called me after Ruth's funeral. He was drunk. He bragged about how easy it was to erase you both. He played a snippet. Harold's voice came through the speaker, slurred but unmistakable. The old woman actually believed the girl was dead. Cried for weeks. Made it easier, honestly. No one asking questions. No one looking for someone already buried. My jaw tightened. I had heard enough. "I will testify," Hutchins said. "Whatever you need. Just keep my grandchildren out of it. Harold will not be able to threaten anyone after today." I walked back toward the car, then paused at Ruth's headstone. Touched the cold granite. "Almost done, Grandma. Almost done." The War Council convened at the hotel suite. Charlotte had returned with her lockbox. Hutchins's envelope sat beside Marcus's documents. Every weapon assembled and ready. Diana spread everything across the table, organizing by category. Corporate fraud, probate fraud, insider trading, personal threats. "We have enough to put Harold away for 20 years, she said. "Derek for 10. This is airtight. We do not wait for the deadline. I made the decision. We go back now." Charlotte looked up. "Now? But we said 48 hours. Harold is using every hour to find a way out. We hit him before he can regroup." Diana nodded. Element of surprise. "I like it." I looked at Charlotte. "Last chance to back out. Once we walk in there, your old life is gone forever. My old life ended when I took off my ring. Let us finish this." My phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Marcus. "Be careful. Harold called me this morning. He is desperate. Desperate men are dangerous." The Whitmore estate looked different in daylight. Tired, faded. The illusion harder to maintain without candlelight and shadows to hide the decay. Rosa opened the front door. Her eyes widened when she saw Charlotte beside me. "Miss Charlotte, your husband is here. He came back this morning. He has been drinking." "Where?" "The study, with your father. They have been arguing for hours." From inside the house came raised voices. Harold and Derek shouting at each other, glass shattering. Perfect timing. I walked toward the chaos. "Let us go introduce ourselves." The study door was closed but not locked. I pushed it open without knocking. Harold sat behind his desk, face red with fury. Derek paced by the window, drink in hand. Vivian cowered in a corner chair, looking like she wished she could disappear into the upholstery. "What the hell?" Harold started. "Family meeting." I walked in like I owned the place, because I did. Everyone is invited. Derek saw Charlotte and his face contorted. You betrayed me, your own husband. You were never my husband." Charlotte did not flinch. "You were my prison guard." Derek lunged toward her. Diana stepped between them. "Touch her, and I will have you arrested before you hit the ground." Harold tried to regain control. "Everyone calm down. Serena, we still have time to discuss this rationally." The time for discussion ended 11 years ago. Now it is time for truth. I placed the first folder on his desk. Marcus's embezzlement evidence. 22 years of theft. $4.2 million. Offshore accounts in the Caymans. Your signature on every transfer. The color drained from Harold's face. He looked at the documents like they were weapons aimed at his chest. "Where did you get these?" "Uncle Marcus. The brother you destroyed. He has been waiting 15 years for this moment." But you are not the only criminal in this room. I turned to Derek, placed Charlotte's lockbox on the desk. Meetings with Morrison Industries. Client list sold for $50,000. Manufacturing specifications for another 30. Recorded phone calls discussing delivery. That is a lie. Derek's voice rose. Charlotte fabricated. I have the emails, Derek. Charlotte stepped forward. The bank statements. Your second phone with the Morrison contact saved under Golf Buddy. You went through my things? I learned from living with snakes. You watch where they hide. Harold turned on Derek. Is this true? You have been selling us out? I was creating options. Derek's desperation showed through the cracks. You were driving the company into the ground. Do not lecture me about treason. You stole millions. You faked your daughter's death. You are the one who taught me that morality is for losers. The two men screamed at each other, father-in-law and son-in-law, decades of lies colliding. I watched them tear each other apart. Stop it. Vivian stood up, hands shaking. Both of you. Just stop. There has to be a way out of this. There is always a way out. There is no way out, Mother. Not this time. I placed the final item on the desk. Hutchins' envelope with the recording. Ruth's attorney. The one Dad bribed to destroy her will. He came back. He is ready to testify. And he has a recording. Dad, drunk, bragging about making Ruth believe I was dead, about how easy it was to erase us both. Harold's hand went to his chest. His breathing became rapid, shallow. I need to sit down. He collapsed into his chair. Sweat on his forehead. Face gray. Panic attack. Diana's voice was clinical. He is not dying. Unfortunately. Harold looked up at me with desperate eyes. Serena, please. We can negotiate. Whatever you want. The company, the house, money. You do not have anything I want. I already own it all. Then what? What do you want? I leaned down to his level. I want you to feel what I felt. Erased, forgotten, dead to everyone who ever knew you. I want you to know that everything you built, everything you lied for, everything you destroyed your family for, I am taking it all. Vivian tried one last time. Serena, please. I am your mother. I know I failed you, but you chose him. Every time. You always chose him. I did not know. I did not know about the money, the fraud. You knew about the funeral. You wore black. You accepted condolences. You looked me in the eye last night and called it a miscommunication. Charlotte spoke quietly. She is telling the truth about not knowing the money things, but she knew about me. I turned to my sister. What do you mean? When I found the private investigator report about you being alive, I went to Mom first, before Dad caught me. Charlotte's voice hardened. She told me to burn it. She said some secrets need to stay buried. I looked at Vivian, the woman who had given birth to me, who had let me be buried alive, who had told her own daughter to burn the evidence that her sister existed. You knew, you both knew, and you did nothing. The doorbell rang, long, insistent. Everyone froze. Rosa's voice came from the hallway. Mr. Whitmore? There are police officers at the door, and someone from the FBI. Harold's face went from gray to white. No. You called them? Already? I did not call anyone. I looked at Diana. She shook her head. The doorbell rang again. Rosa appeared in the doorway. They are asking for Mr. Reed. Something about financial crimes. Derek. What? A figure stepped into view behind Rosa. Uncle Marcus. His face carved from 15 years of waiting. I called them, Marcus said. 48 hours seemed too generous. He looked at Harold, his brother, his betrayer. Hello, Harold. I told you 15 years ago this day would come. You should have listened. Rosa stepped aside and the officers walked in. Special Agent Diane Kowalski, FBI Financial Crimes Division. The woman who spoke was sharp-eyed and professional, flanked by 2 local police officers. She scanned the room, taking in the scattered documents, the shattered glass on the floor, the family frozen in various states of panic. Is Derek Reed present? Derek went pale. He edged toward the back of the study, looking for an exit that did not exist. "Mr. Reed." One of the officers stepped forward. "We would advise you not to leave." The next few minutes happened with brutal efficiency. Agent Kowalski read Derek his rights. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The sound was small, but somehow louder than all the shouting that had come before. "This is a setup." Derek's voice cracked. "Charlotte, tell them. Tell them this is all lies." Charlotte looked at him. The man who had controlled her for 4 years, who had hit her when he drank, who had sold her family's secrets for personal profit. "Goodbye, Derek." She did not watch as they led him out. Harold's eyes followed the officers. A flicker of hope crossed his face. The FBI was here for Derek, not for him. Perhaps there was still a way out. "Mr. Whitmore," Agent Kowalski turned back to face him, "we are not done. We have questions for you as well. About certain financial transactions going back 20 years. The hope died in Harold's eyes. Marcus stepped fully into the room. 61 years old. Gray hair. The brother Harold had destroyed 15 years ago, now standing in his study watching everything crumble. "You did this." Harold's voice was hoarse. "I reported crimes. The FBI did the rest. After everything I did for this family." "You stole from this family." Marcus cut him off. "You destroyed anyone who threatened your control, including your own daughter. I built this company. You built a house of cards, and I just watched it fall." Agent Kowalski spoke again. "Mr. Marcus Whitmore has been cooperating with our investigation for several weeks. He provided documentation that warranted immediate action." "Weeks?" Harold stared at his brother. "You have been planning this for weeks? I have been planning this for 15 years. I just needed someone brave enough to finish it." Marcus looked at me, nodded once, respect passing between us. "Thank you, Uncle Marcus, for everything. Thank your grandmother. She is the one who told me to keep fighting, even when I wanted to give up." Agent Kowalski pulled a chair to face Harold directly. "Mr. Whitmore, we have evidence of systematic embezzlement from Whitmore Textiles spanning 2 decades. We also have evidence of probate fraud regarding your mother's estate. Additionally, we have a recording of you discussing the concealment of your daughter's existence from your dying mother." Harold grasped at straws. "That recording was obtained illegally. It was obtained by Gerald Hutchins, who is prepared to testify. He has also provided documentation of your threats against his family." She let the weight of the evidence settle. "You have 2 options. Option 1, we arrest you now. You face trial for fraud, embezzlement, perjury, witness intimidation, and potentially elder abuse. Given the evidence, conviction is likely. Sentencing would be 15 to 25 years. Harold's hands trembled on the arms of his chair. "Option 2. You cooperate fully, sign over assets to make restitution, provide testimony about any other parties involved. The prosecutor may consider reduced charges." "Reduced to what?" "That depends on how cooperative you are." Silence fell. Harold stared at the floor. The emperor with no clothes, the king with no kingdom. For the first time in 62 years, Harold Whitmore had no plan. "Harold, what do we do?" Vivian's voice was barely a whisper. He did not answer. I stepped forward. "Agent Kowalski, may I?" She nodded. Stepped aside. I approached Harold. Diana handed me the acquisition documents. "Sign these." I placed them on the desk in front of him. "Transfer full ownership of Whitmore Textiles to me. Surrender any claim to Grandma Ruth's estate. Vacate this property within 72 hours. And in return, I will not pursue civil action. Diana will not file additional complaints. You will have the FBI's cooperative option." He looked up at me. "You would let them take everything and still call this mercy? You threw me into the street with $200 and called me dead. You made Ruth grieve me in her final years. You erased me from existence. This is not mercy, Father. This is more than you deserve." Vivian tried one last time. "Serena, please, I am 60 years old. Where will we go? How will we live?" the same way I did. Figure it out. We are your parents. Parents do not hold funerals for living children. Parents do not erase their daughters to protect their reputations. Parents do not choose money over love. I loved you. In my own way, Your love came with conditions I could never meet. I stopped trying to earn it 11 years ago. I looked at her. At the woman who had given birth to me, who had chosen her reputation over her daughter, who had told Charlotte to burn the evidence of my existence. You will survive, Mother. You are good at that, at surviving while others suffer. You will find someone else to take care of you. You always do. She collapsed into sobs. I felt nothing. The wound was too old, too deep, too scarred over to reopen. Harold picked up the pen Diana had placed beside the documents. His hand shook. You know, he said quietly, I did believe you would fail. When you left for Seattle, I thought you would come crawling back within a year. I know. When you did not, I could not admit I was wrong. The funeral was supposed to be closure, a way to move on without admitting defeat. He looked up at me, something unfamiliar in his eyes. But you survived. You thrived. You became everything I said you could not be. Is that supposed to be an apology? It is supposed to be the truth. Something I should have given you a long time ago. He signed, page after page, his name becoming smaller, shakier with each document. Diana notarized each signature. Agent Kowalski witnessed. When it was done, Harold set down the pen like it weighed 1,000 pounds. He slumped forward in his chair. It is over. No, I looked at him. For you, it is just beginning. For me, it is finally over. He met my eyes, and for a moment I saw something I had never expected to see in Harold Whitmore's face. Something that might have been respect. You really are a Whitmore, he said quietly. The only one who deserved to be. I reached into my coat, pulled out Ruth's letter. Grandma Ruth wrote this before she died. She wanted you to know something. I read the final lines, the part I had not shared before, to my son Harold. You were not always cruel. I remember the boy who brought me flowers from the garden, who cried when his puppy died, who promised to make me proud. Somewhere along the way you forgot how to love without controlling. You forgot that family is not about legacy. It is about showing up for each other. I forgive you, Harold, but forgiveness does not mean escaping consequences. It means I will remember the boy you were, even as I watch the man you became face what he deserves. Your mother, Ruth. Harold's composure broke. Tears streamed down his face. Agent Kowalski stepped forward. Mr. Whitmore, if you will come with us. He stood slowly. Did not resist as they led him toward the door. Charlotte was waiting in the hallway. She watched our father walk past, handcuffs not yet on his wrists, but inevitable. What happens now? She asked when they were gone. Now I own a textile company I never wanted and a house full of memories I would rather forget. And us? What happens to us? I looked at my sister, the woman who had known I was alive, who had stayed silent out of fear, who had finally chosen to speak. I do not know yet. Trust is not something I give easily anymore. I understand. I will earn it, however long it takes. Come to Seattle. After this is settled, we can start over. Maybe. Her eyes filled with tears. Not sadness, relief. I would like that. I would like that more than anything. She reached for me. This time I did not pull away. The hug was brief, tentative, but real. Before I left, I walked to the fireplace. Above it hung the family portrait. Harold, Vivian, Charlotte, the one painted after I died, the one that had erased me from existence. I reached up, lifted it from its hook, set it on the floor, face against the wall. Behind it, on the faded wallpaper, a shadow, the outline of the original portrait, the one that had included me. I had always been here, even when they tried to pretend I never existed. I walked out of the study, out of the house, into the cold November air. The snow had stopped, Stars were beginning to appear through breaks in the clouds. I took a deep breath. My first breath as someone no longer haunted by this place. Serena Whitmore had walked into this house as a ghost. She walked out as something new, resurrected, restored, and finally, irrevocably free. 6 months later, spring arrived in Seattle like a promise finally kept. I stood at the window of my corner office, coffee in hand, watching ferries cut white lines across Elliott Bay. The view was the same as it had been the day I received that text from my mother. The same gray water, the same distant mountains, the same steady rhythm of a city that had become my home. But I was not the same. On my desk sat a framed photograph of Grandma Ruth, taken at her 70th birthday party before the dementia began to steal her away. Her ring rested on my finger where it had been for 11 years. Her letter, laminated now to protect the fragile paper, was tucked in my desk drawer where I could read it whenever I needed to remember why I had fought so hard. The weight I had carried for 11 years, the rage, the grief, the burning need for revenge, had lifted, not disappeared entirely. Some wounds leave scars that never fully fade, but the weight had lifted enough that I could finally breathe. My assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Whitmore, your sister is here." I smiled. That word still felt strange on my tongue. Sister. But it was getting easier every time I heard it. Charlotte walked in looking like a different person than the trembling woman I had pulled out of that house 6 months ago. Healthier, lighter, like someone who had finally learned what it meant to breathe without asking permission. She had been in Seattle for 4 months now, small apartment in Capitol Hill, job at a nonprofit that helped women escape domestic violence, starting over from nothing, just like I had done 11 years before. "Ready for the big day?" she asked. "As ready as I will ever be." We had dinner together every Sunday now. Sometimes we talked about the past, mostly we did not. Trust was still building. Slowly, but it was building. Charlotte had divorced Derek 3 months ago. The paperwork had been simple. He had bigger problems to worry about than fighting for assets he would never be able to enjoy. "I never thought I would say this," Charlotte said, "but losing everything was the best thing that happened to me. I know the feeling." Today was the official reopening of Whitmore Textiles under its new name. I was flying to Connecticut for the ceremony. Charlotte was coming with me. But first, there was the matter of what had happened to everyone else. Harold pleaded guilty to embezzlement, fraud, and perjury. He cooperated fully with the FBI just as Agent Kowalski had suggested. The judge took his cooperation into account when sentencing. 8 years in federal prison. He was currently in a minimum security facility in Pennsylvania, wearing khaki instead of bespoke suits, eating cafeteria food instead of holiday dinners. I had not visited. I did not plan to. He wrote letters sometimes. I did not read them. Some bridges are not meant to be rebuilt. Derek received 12 years, insider trading, corporate espionage, securities fraud. Morrison Industries had cooperated with the prosecution to avoid their own liability, throwing Derek to the wolves without a second thought. He was in a medium security facility now. Charlotte heard through the legal grapevine that he had already made enemies inside. She did not feel sorry for him. Neither did I. Vivian was never charged with any crimes. Complicity is not always criminal, but she lost everything anyway. She lived in a small condominium in Boca Raton now, purchased with what little money she had managed to hide before the seizures began. She worked part-time at a department store, greeting customers and helping them find the right size. The irony was not lost on anyone. The woman who had spent her life being served was now doing the serving. She had sent Charlotte a birthday card last month. Charlotte threw it away unopened. Vivian had not tried to contact me. Perhaps she finally understood that some relationships cannot be repaired with a Hallmark card and an apology. Uncle Marcus had testified at Harold's trial. He walked out of the courthouse with 15 years of weight lifted from his shoulders. He worked as a consultant for the new company now. Part-time, he insisted. He claimed he was too old for full-time work, but I suspected he just wanted more time for fishing. The factory in Hartford had been completely renovated. When we arrived that afternoon, I barely recognized the place. Bright and modern, humming with activity and purpose. The sign above the entrance no longer said Whitmore Textiles. It said Ruth Industries, named for the woman who had believed in me when no one else did, named for the grandmother who had tried to find me even as dementia clouded her mind, named for the love that had outlasted every lie. I stood before a small crowd of employees, investors, and local press. I gave a short speech about new beginnings and second chances, about honoring legacy while building something better. I did not mention Harold. I did not mention the funeral. Some stories do not need to be told in public. When I cut the ribbon, Charlotte stood beside me. Marcus watched from the crowd, smiling. Diana was there too, already on the phone negotiating the next deal. Rosa had come up from Greenwich for the occasion. She was retired now, but she had wanted to see this moment with her own eyes. As the applause faded, I looked up at the Ruth Industries sign. "We did it, Grandma," I whispered. "We did it." That evening, I walked through the Whitmore estate one last time. The furniture was gone, sold at auction to pay debts. The portraits were gone, the chandelier, the silver. Just empty rooms and echoes now. I walked through the foyer where I had stood with my suitcase 11 years ago, through the study where Harold had told me I was dead to the family, through the dining room where I had served them their own destruction. I had sold the estate the week before. A developer had purchased it. They were going to tear it down and build condominiums. 2 modern buildings where one old mansion had stood. I kept nothing from the house. Nothing except Ruth's Bible and the original family portrait, the one that had included me, the one they had replaced when they decided I no longer existed. The house would be demolished next month. Good. Some places deserve to disappear. "Any regrets?" Charlotte asked. "About the house?" "No. About any of it?" I considered the question. I regret that it had to happen at all. But I do not regret what I did. We drove to Greenwich Cemetery as the sun began to set. Ruth's headstone had been replaced. The cheap granite Harold had chosen was gone. The new one was marble, elegant and dignified. Ruth Eleanor Whitmore, beloved mother, beloved grandmother. Her love outlasted every lie. I knelt before the grave. Charlotte stood behind me. "I did what you asked, Grandma. I burned it down. And I built something new from the ashes. The company has your name now, your real legacy, not his. I wish you could see it. I wish you could see who I became." I touched the cold stone. "But maybe you can. Maybe you always could." Charlotte placed her own flowers beside mine. "I am sorry I did not fight harder, Grandma. I am trying to make up for it now. 2 granddaughters, 1 grave, 1 shared grief, 1 shared hope." On the flight back to Seattle, Charlotte fell asleep in the seat beside me. I stared out the window at the city lights far below. People asked me if I felt guilty, destroying my own family, putting my father in prison, leaving my mother with nothing. They called me cold, heartless, ruthless. Maybe I was. But here is what they do not understand. I did not destroy my family destroyed itself. I just held up the mirror. I just made them face what they had done. For 11 years, I was a ghost. A name on a headstone. A story they told at cocktail parties to explain my absence. They buried me while I was still breathing. They grieved me while I was still fighting to survive. They chose their reputation over their daughter, their money over their morality, their image over their integrity. I did not take anything from them that they had not already stolen from themselves. They say, revenge is a dish best served cold. But I did not serve revenge. I served truth. And the truth was always cold. I just made them feel it. 1 week later, I sat on my balcony in Seattle, watching the morning light spread across the city. Coffee in hand, calendar full of meetings. But also dinner with Charlotte on Sunday. A fishing trip with Marcus next month. A vacation I was actually planning to take. Life had become something I looked forward to instead of something I merely survived. I was not the scared girl who had fled to Seattle with $200. I was not the stone-cold executive who had returned for revenge. I was something new now. Someone who had survived. Someone who had won. Someone learning to live again. I touched Ruth's ring on my finger. The only inheritance that ever mattered. The only legacy worth keeping. They called me cold for evicting my own parents. They called me cruel for exposing the truth. They said I should have forgiven, should have moved on, should have let it go. But tell me, would you forgive someone who buried you alive? Would you let go of the hand that pushed you into the grave? I did not think so. I do not regret what I did. I only regret that it took me 11 years to do it. They declared me dead. So I came back to life, and I made sure they never forgot I was still breathing. That is my story. The funeral I did not attend. The family I did not need. The life I built anyway. If you have ever felt erased by the people who should have loved you most, know this. You are not what they say you are. You are what you choose to become. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, hit that like button. If you want more stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, did they get what they deserved? Or should I have forgiven them? I will see you in the next one. This story is fictional.